Good news everyone! Scott Cawthon finally remembered their password to his Twitter account. Oh, and to celebrate the 12th anniversary of Five Nights at Freddy's, we got teasers for not one, but two new FNAF games. Not to mention the announcement that Freddy Fazbear's Pizza will be opening at the American Dream Mall in New Jersey. Although I fear that may not be as great of an idea as the internet believes, since there are some rather crazy people in this world. But enough about pizza. My girl Vanny is back and she is slaying. And in more ways than one. Over the past month, Stillwell has been posting how fast can you spot reels, each slowly revealing a different character or location. Notably the MCM Welcome Show entrance door, Party Time Chica, the MCM Theatre crowds, and most interestingly Vanny. However, the Vanny reel becomes corrupted partway through, giving us 3 glimpses at a new Vanny costume. Or is it? Ruin heavily hinted to us that the Princess Quest ending of Obscurity Breach was the canon ending, with the golden sword impaling the Princess Quest 3 arcade cabinet in the AR world, signifying it's been beaten, along with all other endings having comic books made by Gregory and a headless Freddy and Fazblast with the same damage as in the Vanny endings. But there's a problem. If this really is a new Vanny suit, then the Princess Quest 3 ending can't happen, except for the fact we know with as much certainty as we ever get in this franchise that it does. Which leaves us with one of two options. Either this is an older version of the Vanny suit, or this isn't Vanessa. But before we speculate further, let's take a closer look at the Vanny teaser and see what we're working with. Most notable about this new design is the change in mask. It appears to be a mixture of the Help Wanted mask and the Vanny costume head from Security Breach. However, it's far creepier than either, looking reminiscent of the White Rabbit from American McGee's Alice. Is that last bit important? Not really, I just think there's not nearly enough talk about the Alice games and will take any excuse to bring them up. The mask retains the same colour palette as the one in Security Breach, a white base with grey detailing, large red eyes and long black lashes. The shape meanwhile is closer to the Help Wanted and Vanny mask with the same sinister smile, albeit much toothier. Something to note for later is the large 2 in the Security Breach font not so hidden in our right eye, indicating that this is indeed a teaser for Security Breach 2. Whilst the mask is familiar, the rest of the costume is not. It appears to be a skin-tight black full bodysuit with a red bow presumably tied to her hair, else tied around the neck, it's hard to say. The shoes are also shaped similarly to other bunnies across the franchise, but unfortunately this seems to be the last distinguishing feature. There's 2 theories that I do want to quickly address. The first, that Vanny could be in a wetsuit, which I was leaning towards until I noticed the red bow was separate from the glitches surrounding Vanny, at which point I had to concede that there's just nowhere for an oxygen tank, so unless this Vanny is secretly in Nomura, she's gonna drown. Not to mention the boat would be rather impractical underwater, as would the rabbit paw shoes. The second theory is that this Vanny is a Cassie under the control of Mimic or Glitch App, which unless there's a big time jump, this cannot be a Cassie. This is very clearly an adult woman, although this does not automatically mean she is Vanessa, unfortunately. So far, the only information we have regarding Security Breach 2 is this illustration of Vanny. So if we want to figure out where we're heading, we're gonna have to explore every possibility. Luckily, we have a few tidbits of information that aren't tied to any particular project that may be of use. In a Dorco charity livestream, Scott Cawthon left a comment that has been living rent-free in the heads of theorists ever since. There is a sequel to something being worked on, by the way. Not a 3, a 2. So we're picking up where we're left off. There's a new Vanny, and we're playing as Cassie or someone trying to save her after the elevator was cut, right? Well, I'm not so sure. Think about it. At this point in the story, what role would Vanny, Vanessa, or someone else taking up the mantle even have? This Vanny is much creepier than previous appearances, so it would be kinda weird for Vanessa, now freed from Glitch Trap, to be saving Cassie in such an eerie mask, wielding a knife, and even weirder if Vanessa's a villain again, as it would make the Security Breach and Help Wanted 2 Princess Quest endings completely redundant. If it's a newcomer, then why are they here? And more importantly, why would they be Vanny? Other than still realizing that Vanny has been underutilized and are trying to redeem her as a character since fans love her, and bunny characters are very much noticeable. Isn't that right, Jax? Assuming this is in the aftermath of the Princess Quest 3 ending, the only person I can think of to be Vanny at this point is Tape Girl from the original Help Wanted game. I've always thought it kinda strange that we get all these tapes documenting her, learning about Glitchtrap, getting close enough to try and destroy him, and then she just disappears. With the QA tester before her, Jeremy, we at least hear about him cutting off what sounds like some form of Vanny mask, and even the possibility that in cutting off the mask, he untethered the connection to Glitchtrap, else died from his injuries as he seems to have cut himself pretty bad while slicing the mask off of him with a paper guillotine. Or if you subscribe to the theory that Jeremy is Mr. Catty's dad, the same way you should subscribe to me if you're enjoying this video so far, then his consciousness is transferred to the mask bot from Ruin. Either way, Jeremy's story seems pretty wrapped up fairly well. Tape Girl though, last we heard from her, she had trapped Glitchtrap in her audio logs and had tried and failed to delete logs in order to kill him. She did say it was her last day as a beta tester, so technically they don't need to continue her story. There's a chance that, unbeknownst to us, she was also possessed by Glitchtrap. We know from Vanessa, Mr. Cassie's dad, and likely Gregory, that multiple people can be controlled by Glitchtrap at once, so it's not much of a stretch that Tape Girl could also be under Glitchtrap's influence. Why is she Vanny? Because her name's Vanya, obviously. Whilst none of this is impossible, I don't think it's very likely, especially not the Vanya bit. I just don't see how Vanny would fit into the story post-Ruin, and we haven't even touched upon the Spot the Difference teasers yet. Okay, how about this being a prequel then? Now I hear you. Scott said it was a sequel, dumbass. That means it has to come after. Scott says everything very literally because, reasons. First off, how self-aware of you. If I didn't know better, I'd say it was a very unrealistic portrayal for entertainment purposes in a YouTube video. Secondly, technically speaking, prequels are sequels, that's where the term comes from. Pre, meaning before, and sequel. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 was a sequel. I mean, it says 2 in the name, what more do you want? And it takes place before the events of the original Five Nights at Freddy's game, and therefore, also a prequel. I also want to mention that we don't even know if he was referring to Security Breach, as just 1 hour after the Vanny teaser, we got a FNAF World 2 teaser from Mega Cat Studios, so for all we know, Scott could have been referring to that instead. Regardless, there's so much more possibility for a prequel. In fact, just a few days before all these teasers, I had just finished scripting my perfect pitch for my perfect Vanny game, which I now may have to make some adjustments to. If Security Breach 2 is a prequel, I think it makes sense for this to be Vanessa, and if the previous teasers were anything to go off of, this may be taking place at an earlier and smaller Pizzaplex. Freddy Fazbear's mini Pizzaplex, if you will. If it is a different Pizzaplex, I think it would be on the same plot of land as one in Security Breach, as we have an entire parking garage that looks abandoned and has been built over. If this was still in use, I don't think there would be parts of the walls that are in ruin, with, you know, massive holes in them. Not to mention the Nightmare Star Boss and the Sewer Security Bot from outside the FNAF 6 location, all of which look as if they've been abandoned down below the Pizzaplex for a long time, long enough to be covered in grime and sludge. Also because Fazbear. Back in Security Breach, there are a couple of hints at multiple missing people. And by a couple of hints, I mean one at 6 AM, when Gregory says,
Freddy, if I leave now, nothing will change, will it? There will be more disappearances.
Another about 2 seconds later if you choose the alley ending, and a third in this duffel bag message. Is this happening again? Customer complaint. Why did you reopen? Everyone remembers what happened to those kids. Back when Security Breach came out, this felt less like a connection to the missing posters from the alley, and more a reference to the MCI. Similar to the You Should Follow Dave, He Sucks message being a reference to William Afton's fake name in the Silver Eyes books, where he works as more security under the name of Dave Miller, where he sucked. This felt like a loose thread, perhaps a remnant of a previous iteration of the story. However, if we're getting a game at an earlier Pizzaplex with Vanessa in what seems to be an early version of the Vanny suit, we may be about to find out exactly what happened to those kids. This may also be telling us exactly how Gregory became Dr. Rabbit, or as people have been calling him GGY. Look, I agree it's a much better name, but come on, that's his gamer tag, not his villain name. Like my Xbox 360 gamer tag is JPlays, but that's not my villain name, that's a Lavender Lady. Don't tell Steven. My only issue with us potentially playing as Gregory is that it would feel kind of redundant. Sure, from a lore perspective, it would be kind of cool to see how Gregory was turned into GGY, but from a gameplay perspective, Would we really feel satisfied having two security breaches in which we play as Gregory being hunted by Vanny in a pizzaplex? Sure, the pizzaplex will probably be different and we may get more Vanny and have her actually use her weapon, but either we get a game that will feel too similar to Security Breach or it will make Security Breach struggle to stand as its own game, which it already kind of does. A lot of us tend to treat Ruin as its own game, despite it being a DLC to Security Breach. So for now, let's move on to the last loose thread, Glamrock Chica. When the Pro teaser released, we all very quickly noted the Glamrock Chica imagery, the hen floaties and the rings that matched Glamrock Chica's leg warmers. Okay, I get that's not much, but in the barren desert, even the smallest of puddles feel like a giant fig tree. And now that we might be getting a Security Breach prequel, she may be finally getting her time in the spotlight, and if she does, it may finally explain the Glamrock Chica shrines all around Security Breach. In addition, all of Steelwood's releases, bar Help Wanted, has had a focus on one of the members in the Glamrock band, at least in some form of the character. Glamrock Freddy was our only ally in Security Breach. Ruin had a lot of focus on Cassie's admiration for Roxy, even giving Roxy a redemption arc. We theorised that in Help Wanted 2 we play as Mr. Cassie's dad, whose favourite character is Bonnie, although even without that theory there is plenty of Bonnie imagery throughout the game, most notably the Bonnie mask in the Princess Quest 4 graveyard. Secret of the Mimic is the weakest link. However, there's a notable amount of attention to Monty, which could have been given to any other character that Fazbear took, or even to Jackie since she was all over the marketing, but they deliberately chose Monty, a character who would go on to star in the Glamrock band as Bonnie's replacement. That just leaves Chica, and granted, we did get some pretty huge Chica reveals back in Secret of the Mimic, but in terms of how much she was involved from a gameplay aspect and the story of Secret of the Mimic on its own, she didn't actually have much impact outside of a warehouse and admin wing sequence, which took a break partway through so we could play with a parade float of Monty. It just felt like a bigger deal because she was the first and she has seen everything, both in universe and from a meta perspective. Chica's one of the first ever animatronics we ever met, all the way back in FNAF 1 on our very first night, which makes it even more ludicrous that we are only now getting a game focusing on her. And no, I am not just biased because she's one of my favourites. Probably. Until we get any more news about Security Breach 2, my prediction is that we will be playing as one of the missing people from the alleyway posters, a Glamrock Chica superfan, lured by Vanessa during one of Vanny's earliest capers in a previous iteration of the Pizzaplex, before it became a mega one. We'll then be chased throughout the Pizzaplex, setting up camp in secluded areas. Maybe we'll actually save Five Nights at Freddy's for once. Hey, Editor Jaffa here. Whilst going out to bounds in Security Breach to get better screenshots of the Chica Shrine, I noticed that one of the post-it notes seems to be a map of some sort, which I think adds a bit more evidence that a kid was camping out here for at least a while. It seems to be drawn in glitter glue, since when there's all the proper lighting, it's really hard to see what it is, which could just be because of how the light works when you're really close to something. Due to the crudeness of the drawing and the holes in the paper, it's difficult to see what this is a map of exactly. However, I think the rectangle with the three triangles is a rocket, so possibly Phasablast, and the blob might be Roxy's Raceway. Presumably that would make the other two locations Monty's Gates Golf and the Mazer size. However, we really can't see what those shapes actually are, there's just two other points on the map. They could just as easily be Rockstar Row and the Foxy Play area, judging by where they're situated. Also, I keep saying Chica Shrines plural, there's only one, which is in the sewers near the first generator for the gates leading up to the parking garage. Apologies, I have no idea why I kept saying shrines, it's just shrine singular within the script. I'm not sure if Glamrock Chica will help us similar to how Glamrock Freddy and Roxy assisted Gregory and Cassie throughout Security Breach 1, but hey, a gal can dream. There's a good chance that in the canon ending we're killed by a Vanny. However, it's important to know that the It Is Happening Again log mentioned that the Pizzaplex had reopened, meaning this Pizzaplex likely shut down before it became the one from Security Breach, so maybe we escape and go to the police.
Anyway.
Okay, yeah, who am I kidding? A child of FNAF, alive, and not a robot? Not in my Freddy 5 Bears. I know I've made a lot of leaps in logic, but we have very little to go off at the moment. But anyway, What do you think Security Breach 2 will be about? Do you think I'm right? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe. A hyped? The fuck is a hype? Oh, they're ripping off Twitch, I see. Wait, it's free? And it's a mobile thing. Wait, people actually use a mobile app, but it's so cluttered with ads and the UI is so bad. Hell, posts barely even come up on the homepage, it's just a bunch of shorts and weird mobile games. Fine, I'll tell them. I have been informed of a hype feature for mobile users. Press it, I guess? I have no idea what the hell it actually does. Is it like Twitch bits but algorithm boost instead of money? I have no idea what the point actually is. I don't use the app. I really don't care for mobile phones. If someone wants to explain that in the comments, please educate me. Anyway, with that attention aside, I will see you in the next video. Goodbye for now. Scott said it was a sequel, dumbass. How? Bad.